everybody. Welcome back to Unapologetically Woman. This year, we're celebrating phenomenal women all across Kentucky who make no apologies for their perspectives or the impacts that they're making in the community. Today, we're celebrating my friend, Tanya Torp. Tanya is the Executive Director of Step by Step and helps to empower and embolden young single mothers to improve their lives. Tanya is also a mom, a wife, an advocate, a pastor, and a writer. Unapologetically Woman, Tanya Torp, that's you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so excited to be able to celebrate you and with you today.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to jump in.
Okay.
Tell us about Step by Step. What do you do?
So Step by Step is an amazing organization that empowers young single mothers. Our youngest mom is the age of 12 and the oldest is 24. And so we walk alongside them in their lives, give them exactly what they need, which is a lot of support and cheerleading, but also connect them to resources in the community, connect them to each other, to one another, to be that kind of support, that kind of care that they need throughout the community, and just help them to reach their goals.
Wow, that's important work for you to do. How was that work affected by the pandemic?
Majorly, just like a lot of other people have shared right here from this seat, majorly impacted these young women. What we did in February, before things really hit in March when everything started shutting down, we had the foresight to start to connect with them and ask them what would happen if childcare shut down, you lost your job. And we did surveys and moms told us exactly what they needed. And so what we did for the first time in the history of our organization, we literally paid their bills. We collected thousands upon thousands of dollars from very generous people in the community. And every month they showed us their budget and let us know what they needed. And we were able to take care of things like their cell phone bill, car notes, rents, all kinds of things, and keeping these young women who literally could not work but wanted to work. I mean, they had no childcare. Mm-hmm. So it was incredibly impactful. So we went from walking alongside of them and supporting them to kind of doing triage. Where is the most need and who needed the most? And so it was incredibly impactful. Everything went online, of course. So we took a very relational, in your face, walking next to you kind of ministry and nonprofit and moved it online. And so there were challenges there, but we've risen to the occasion.
And so you mentioned ministry.
Yes.
Ministry is a big part of your life.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure it guides your work.
It does. It is definitely the motivation behind everything in my life. You know, my favorite verse is Micah 6:8, that we make sure that we just move through life in the ways that we are bold in our lives, but that we are also humble in our lives, that we are lifting up justice. And so those are very important things to me, to be humble, to walk in justice, to walk in love.
And so justice is another thing. You talk a whole lot about that, for equality and equity and you know, a level playing field.
Yeah, so
why is that so important for you?
Just a few years ago, I started out by just being angry. What could I do to see so much injustice in the world? And started taking a lot of trainings and doing a lot of studying, taking classes and learning about diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And kind of went to these places all over the country, just learning, and realized that I needed to bring it back to the community. So I just started very small, sitting around my table, inviting people to have these discussions with what I had learned and shared. And then from there, lots of different organizations and companies started calling on me to do some facilitation work. And so it's important to me not to just facilitate these conversations, but to actually move the needle. What is going to make real positive change? And so as I do these trainings, these workshops with different companies, I say, all right, what are the next steps? What's tangible? What are the things that we really can change, that we have control over? And what is the plan for making this sustainable? You can't just talk about this once and think everything's going to be okay.
Check.
Right?
No.
Right? Workshops do not end racism. Workshops do not end poverty. So we have to have a plan for what comes next, what comes after that, that we can actually do tangibly and to create some sort of systems that we need to counteract the systems that are already there.
And so have you seen over time kind of a switch with more companies and businesses paying more attention or trying to be intentional?
This is where the unapologetic part comes in. because I see many companies starting to focus on it, but I also see a lot of performative allyship. So I see companies that are saying, we care about this, but when I look at your board, when I look at your policies and your procedures, I need to see that you really do care, that you really are moving the needle. It's not just about hiring one person of color or one person living with a disability. It is really about making systemic change that lasts, that it's not just a one-time thing to save face, but to last. And so I have seen a lot of my clients are very much saying, all right, we don't want to just put a Band-Aid on this. What do we do? And that's positive. It's incredible to see real change.
And so you're talking about that unapologetic. You were invited to sit on the Mayor's Commission for Racial Justice and Equality, and you declined that opportunity.
Yes, I did. So I was fortunate enough to be on the Mayor's Commission for Homelessness, and I saw the intentionality behind that. And we had a very long time to interview people, learn about structures, learn about the things that were out there. And when I saw the timeline on this, it was too fast for me. I really want to make sure that we are careful about not putting a Band-Aid on. And while I love and totally respect the fact that there is a spotlight, there is some movement in that, that this was something that was on the mayor's agenda that she very much cares about. I wanted to make sure that this was given the same intentionality as other projects, as other movements. And I want to make sure that continues to go, and very much have respect for everyone who sat on those panels, who sat in those rooms, who helped to make some decisions and push the city forward. But I want to see even more intentionality.
And so you talk a lot. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I talk a lot.
Someone said, if you don't want to know the truth, don't ask Tanya. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, you're co-signing that.
Yes, I am co-signing that.
You know, and so one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, when you see all of these different things happening, and you're talking about being intentional, you're talking about self-care, you're talking about elevating Black women, minority women. Yes. Where does all of that come from for you?
My mom, it's so funny that my mom, who lives here in Lexington, will say, she'll look at my life and say, what are you doing? And sometimes she'll, where are you going with all this? And I say, I learned it from you. I remember growing up, there would be women who were surviving domestic violence that would be sleeping on our sofa. There would be, I'm an Air Force brat, so there would be airmen who couldn't get home for Christmas, spending the night at our house. So my home was, as I was brought up, was always a place of love and acceptance, but also justice. I didn't learn enough about how to fight, because my mom really wanted to kind of keep blinders on us in some respects, but I learned about interpersonal relationships and how you can make a difference. One person can make a difference. And so I learned that at home. And so, speaking of home and the things that you learn there, you have a busy home. I have a busy home. You have a lot of interesting conversations. You've got 2 boys. I have 2 small boys. Those. So my husband and I are foster parents, and we have adopted one young man who's 5 years old and getting ready to enter kindergarten, and we have another 3-year-old. And what I have learned through this process is the reason that we said we wanted to foster and adopt Black boys is because, statistically speaking, they are overrepresented in our community. And that doesn't mean that there are more Black and brown families that need to have their kids taken away because they're just not taking care of them. It means that white kids are also missing out on being cared for because the focus and the spotlight is on Black boys and removing them from homes. And so we wanted to make sure that what we did in our home was to focus on Black boys and making sure that we gave them a chance not to go from the school to prison pipeline, but to actually advance. And so we wanted to make sure that we did things well. And as you know my husband, you've seen my husband, he is a white man. And one of my favorite things that he's ever said is, I can teach them to be men, I can't teach them to be Black men in America. And so we make sure that our community, our village, as we call it, comes alongside us, that our village is a multicultural, multi-ethnic village on purpose. And so our home is a place of refuge for many. Our home is a place that is normally open, except for COVID. We have a weekly breakfast that we invite the community to. Anybody can show up. We just really try to have conversations like these, sitting at our table, where we can say, why is there poverty in our neighborhood? Why is there gunfire? Why are things in the media about our neighborhood that aren't positive when there's amazing positive things happening? Why is there some leanings towards not telling the truth about the good things in our neighborhood? So we have these conversations, sometimes sitting on our stoop, sometimes just at our table, and I think that's really important. And it's important for these children, our children, to see these conversations happening and to be a part of these conversations.
Well, and you have one that's getting ready to go to kindergarten.
Yes, he is.
Is he excited?
He's very excited. So he has been talking about kindergarten since he was probably 2 years old. So he's very excited, but he doesn't realize yet. We try to talk to him about it, that he's going to have to leave some of his friends behind in preschool. So he doesn't understand quite that concept yet, but he is very excited. He's picked out his backpack and everything.
Well, I see that all of the boys negotiate. They practice negotiating quite a lot. Your husband, Christian, is an attorney.
Yes, he is.
So is he giving them those early skills?
Oh, yes. I think sometimes I feel like it's like them against me, all the men in the house, and even the boy cat against me.
Not even the cat.
Even the boy cat. But yeah, I want them to have their own agency. I want them to understand that they have agency, that they have voice. And so they exercise that quite often, and they practice that every single day.
Yes.
So our kids will tell you that their favorite music is soul music. They love James Brown. They want to hear Hamilton when they get in the car. They will tell you exactly what they want and how they want it.
That's great. Okay, so Mom, you're writing a book in the midst of all of these things that you're doing. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm writing about radical hospitality. And
what does that mean?
It's a concept that I have been studying for a really long time, but I have my own definition for it. There's lots of other authors that have written about it, but mine is a radical transformation through welcome. So I'm going to welcome you into my space, into my life, into my sphere, and I don't get to choose how you walk into that. And it's radical to be able to say, come as you are. Walk into my space and let me come into yours as I am. You can reject it, you can accept it, but something changes when you welcome people as their whole selves. And so that's part of what we do at Step by Step. When these young women walk into our space, we're like, we accept you as you are. No shame and where you've been or where you've come from. You might be carrying shame. That's not something we welcome here. We welcome you in everything that you are. And it's the same for our home. And we want our kids to learn that. So our kids are learning. We welcome people as they are.
So tell me your thoughts on the whole civil rights issues that have been happening over the past 18 months.
Yeah, so none of this is new. We saw with the Reconstruction that there was a lot of movement made, especially for Black people and people of color in our country. And then there was a whole backlash, right, that came right after that. And so we've seen a lot of strides in the movements and with the uprisings. And now we're starting to see the backlash. We're starting to see voting rights eroded. We're starting to see there's a backlash against teaching critical race theory, which is not actually even taught in schools. So there's so much misinformation. What we're actually teaching in schools is real history that includes the achievements of Black and brown people, not just the slavery and the hardships, but all of history, true American history. And part of American history that is my favorite.
The legacy doesn't start with slavery.
Right, no, not at all. And my favorite part of American history that makes me very proud to be American is the fact that there has always been resistance. There's always resistance to evil. There's always been resistance that's lifted up. In fact, today I just posted on social media about some washerwomen who resisted in the 1800s and said, we're not washing anymore. Black women who stood up in a place where they had absolutely no agency and said, no more. There will always be resistance. So as we start to see this backlash against critical race theory, which again is not taught in schools, it is actually a legal precedent. So when we start to see a backlash coming, then we know that there will always continue to be people that will push back. We lost John Lewis last year, and I got the opportunity to hear him speak once, and he said, don't ever say that things have not changed, because things have changed. I didn't bleed for things not to change. Things have changed, and there's such a positive outlook. There's so many people that are finally starting to see, oh, there is a whole entire history that doesn't just include a dominant history, but also includes incredible achievements. And so there is some movement in that. There will always be backlash, but there will always be resistance.
And you're talking about movement. I want you to talk about NTOO, because that's a special place.
I want to credit conversation. Even just sitting here as we're having this conversation today, there is something that's happening. Maybe it's pricking someone's ear or someone's heart to make change. So Renee Shaw, myself, and Andrea James had several just conversations about making a space. Where are the spaces where women of color get to be together, get to practice community care, get to talk about really tough issues when we're always busy with a billion different things.
That's right.
And so we just started with 5 people, women of color from all over Lexington, and now we have advanced into almost 800 women. And it's incredible to see all of the little offshoots that have happened, relationships, businesses that have started.
Unapologetically woman.
Unapologetically woman.
Yes.
Which I found out today was a part of what started. So we're having these conversations in spaces that are safer spaces. I always say when I am consulting with people, there is no such thing as a safe place, especially for Black women in America, but a safer space. And so we have this space where we can talk about tough things and to be able to laugh and have joy together and gather together and dance together, support other businesses, especially BIPOC businesses together. Right. And so we have been able to really do that and cheerlead for one another. And I'm very proud of the space. It is its own thing. No one is managing it. It just has taken off, and it's beautiful to watch it naturally progress.
So Tanya, you're a geek.
I'm a huge geek.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I call myself a geek and a blurred, a Black nerd. I love all things sci-fi. One of the things that is so incredible to me is thinking about Star Trek at the time when it came out, thinking about Vietnam War, thinking about other uprisings that were happening, civil rights, and to see that there were different people on the screen that looked like us for some of the first times ever. Was revolutionary. So I think I love the fact that if you read Octavia Butler's work or other folks, you can see that there's this space where we exist in our fullness. We bring our whole selves into these spaces. And that's what I love about science fiction and geekdom, is that you get to bring your whole self into the space. So if anybody wants to talk to me about Doctor Who, Star Trek, I'll talk about it all day long.
All day long. All day long.
Yeah.
Tanya, it has been so wonderful. This could go on forever.
It could.
It could go on forever. But I want to thank you for joining us and letting us celebrate you and everything that you do.
Thank you.
But I want to give you the last word to young girls or young women that might be watching, to give them some hope.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of hope in, if you don't see the space where you are welcome, where you fit in, where the things that you want to talk about are being talked about, create your own space. We do that again and again. NTOO was one of those spaces. Boss Up Kentucky. We're also creating a Wild Bloom Inc., another BIPOC writing circle. Whenever I see a space where I'm like, it's missing, I want this, I want to create a space, then create it. Create it and watch your life change and watch the lives of other people change. So yeah, just create it. Bring it.
Okay. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
You guys heard it today from Tanya Torp. Bring it. If you don't see a space made for you, create your own. Continue to join us as we celebrate other phenomenal women just like Tanya who are doing amazing things in our communities. I'll talk to you soon.